She married for revenge but fell in love with the. She wore white like a weapon, not to promise forever, but to bury a past he didn't even know he destroyed. If you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because, tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one. And you don't want to miss it. She wore white like a weapon, not to promise forever, but to bury a past he didn't even know he destroyed. The silk clung to her like silence. Smooth, blinding, merciless. Guests gasped when she entered the grand hall, but she didn't hear them. Her mind was elsewhere, years behind, in a tiny apartment where grief lived in the wallpaper and betrayal rotted in her chest like a splinter no one could see. Today, she would marry the man who helped kill everything that mattered to her. No one knew. Not even him. He stood at the altar like a god carved in marble. Julian Cross, CEO of Crosstech International. Worth billions. Cold. Controlled. Charismatic when necessary. He made people feel lucky to breathe the same air. To the world, this wedding was shocking but thrilling. A whirlwind engagement between a mysterious woman and the most elusive executive in the country. The media called it enigmatic. Some whispered, contractual. Only one word mattered to her, revenge. 3 months earlier, she was living in her car. Not because she was weak, because she had nowhere else to go after her father's company collapsed. After his heart gave out. After the lawsuits, after the scandal, after Crosstech bought their dying business for pennies and left her family with dust. Julian Cross didn't push the knife in, but he handed it to someone who did. She'd studied him for years. How he thought. What he valued. How he operated. And she'd found her opening. Julian needed a wife. Not for love. For leverage. Board pressure. Legacy. Reputation. So she became exactly what he needed. Beautiful, brilliant, mysterious. With just enough scars to seem real. And when he proposed, not on one knee but over a contract with her name at the top, she smiled and said yes. She told herself. This ends with him broken. Back to the wedding. Julian looked at her now with something between curiosity and calculation. Are you ready? He asked. She nodded. Always. The officiant spoke. She barely listened. He said, do you take this man? She said, yes, before the sentence ended. He said, I do, without blinking. They kissed like statues. No clapping. Just polite applause. No tears. Just deals done. The reception sparkled. Champagne, chandeliers, string quartet in the corner. She danced once, with him. His hand on her waist felt like ownership, not affection. You're quiet, he murmured. I'm just taking it all in. He watched her. There was no softness in his gaze. But something flickered, interest, maybe. Suspicion? You're very good at pretending, he said. She raised an eyebrow. So are you. They didn't speak much that night. He disappeared to speak to investors. She wandered through conversations she didn't care about. People complimented her dress, her hair, her poise. No one asked her how she felt. She didn't come here to feel. In their new penthouse suite, the silence returned. She stepped out of the gown like shedding armor. Wore a silk robe. Sat by the window. He poured himself a drink. Do you want one? He asked. She shook her head. Julian leaned against the counter. Watched her reflection in the glass. Then almost gently. You don't love me. She turned her head slowly. Does that matter? He said nothing. The city pulsed outside the window. So many lives. So many lies. She whispered to herself. You won't see it coming. The first week of their marriage was choreographed like a ballet. Breakfasts in silence. Public appearances with linked arms and fake smiles. Evenings behind separate doors. Every touch rehearsed. Every word intentional. It was exactly what she'd wanted. No feelings. No confusion. Just proximity and a slow unraveling she would control. Until the accident. They were leaving a charity gala. Cameras still flashing. Reporters still shouting. Julian opened the car door for her, not out of kindness, but performance. Then the scream cut through the night. A child, maybe 7, darted into the street after a toy, just as a delivery truck screeched around the corner. Everything moved too fast. Julian was gone from her side in seconds. He grabbed the boy mid-step, just before impact. Threw both of them to the curb. His suit jacket tore. Elbow scraped. The child cried into his shoulder. And she froze. Not because she didn't care. Because she hadn't expected to see him care. Later, in the car, his knuckles bled onto his cuff. "You're hurt," she said softly. "It's nothing." He didn't look at her. Didn't boast. Just stared ahead, jaw tight. Finally, she asked, "Why did you do that?" He turned his head, eyes cold. "What kind of question is that?" She blinked. "I didn't mean. I saw a kid in danger. I moved." "No cameras were watching," she said. "You didn't have to." Julian's voice was quieter now. "Not everything I do is for show." She looked away. Her stomach twisted. It was the first time he sounded human. And the first time she realized she didn't like seeing him in pain. The next morning, she found him in the kitchen. Sleeves rolled, forearm bandaged. Making coffee, not with machines or assistants, but with his own hands. He noticed her staring. "What? You make coffee?" He glanced at her. "You think I was born in a penthouse?" She tried to smile, but something in his face made it falter. "You're full of surprises," she muttered. He poured her a cup. She didn't say thank you. But she drank it. That afternoon, her phone buzzed. An old contact. One of the few who knew her real plan. Text, "Status." She stared at it. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She typed, "Still on track." "Don't worry." Deleted it. Typed again, "Getting complicated." So, that night, they attended another function. More cameras, more lies. He offered his arm. She took it without hesitation. But as they posed for photos, he leaned close and whispered, "You've stopped flinching when I touch you." She stiffened. "Don't flatter yourself." "I'm not." There was a beat of silence. Then he added quietly, "I'm not sure that's a good thing." Back in the car, neither spoke. Streetlights passed in streaks of gold and shadow. Then, unprompted, he said, "My mother died when I was 9. She turned her head. "Why are you telling me that?" "I don't know," he said. "Maybe because you don't ask. And that feels safer than the people who pretend to care." She swallowed hard. "I didn't know. You weren't supposed to." At home, they didn't separate like usual. She lingered by the window. He stood by the fireplace. Two strangers, orbiting the same grief. She said, "What was she like?" He answered without thinking. "Kind. Too kind for this world." They didn't speak after that. But something had changed. Something neither of them wanted to name. She didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear. Not because of guilt. Because of him. The way his voice softened when he talked about his mother, the flicker of boyish grief in his eyes, the way her chest tightened when he walked away. It wasn't supposed to happen. This was a strategy. A mission. Not a marriage. So the next morning she returned to what she knew best, distance. Julian was already in the study, buried in paperwork. She stepped in, heels clicking on the marble. "I'd like to renegotiate our agreement," she said. He didn't look up. "Which part?" "All of it." Now he looked. Slowly. "You're joking." She crossed her arms. "No physical appearances unless strictly necessary. No more personal conversations. No shared quarters." His jaw ticked. "Did I cross a line?" "No." "Then why the sudden rules?" She didn't answer. Because the truth was this. She didn't trust what she was starting to feel. He stood, walked around the desk, leaned on the edge. His tone was calm, but firm. "Tell me what this is really about." "I'm making it clear," she replied. "This arrangement is about optics. Not emotion." His gaze didn't waver. "You keep telling me what it's not. Maybe you should ask yourself what you're afraid it is." Her throat tightened. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Talk to me like you see me." She left the room. And hated how her hands were shaking. That afternoon, she went through her old revenge files, reports, financials, press clippings. Evidence of how his company ruined her father's. But the pages didn't give her the satisfaction they used to. They felt distant. Like reading someone else's grief. Her father was still gone. Nothing would change that. But for the first time, she wondered if vengeance would fill the hole he left, or deepen it. Julian was quiet for 2 days after that. He wasn't cold. Just unavailable. She found herself checking the hallway for him. Waiting to hear the sound of his voice in the kitchen. Wondering what he was thinking. She hated that. Hated it. On the third night he came home late. Smelled like rain and bourbon. Loosened tie, sleeves rolled up. She was curled on the couch reading. Pretending she wasn't waiting. "You're up," he said. "I couldn't sleep." He hesitated. "Can I sit?" She shrugged. He sat beside her. Not too close. Not far. They watched the city lights through the window. Then out of nowhere, he said, "I had panic attacks when I took over the company." She blinked. "You?" He nodded. "I'd lock the office door, curl under the desk. Couldn't breathe." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you already think I'm the villain. I might as well be human too." She stared at him for a long moment. Then stood, walked to the window. "I'm not who you think I am either." "I know." Her voice cracked. "No, you don't." She didn't tell him the whole truth. But that night, she didn't sleep alone. They didn't touch. They didn't speak. But they lay side by side, both facing the ceiling. And in that silent space between them, something broke loose. Not love. Not yet. But the beginning of surrender. The storm started as a whisper. By noon, the skies above Manhattan had turned the color of bruises. By 5, their driver called, "All bridges are backed up. Flights grounded. Power outages expected." She stood by the window of Julian's glass-walled office, arms crossed, watching the city vanish in fog and rain. "You're not going anywhere tonight," he said behind her. "I wasn't planning to." The power cut at 6:17 p.m. They lit candles. Ordered room service. Ate on the couch like civilians. No staff. No phones. No headlines. Just them. Trapped. She unpinned her hair. Let it fall. He noticed. She noticed him noticing, but neither said a word. Halfway through the night, thunder cracked hard enough to shake the windows. She flinched. He glanced at her. "You okay?" "I'm not afraid of storms," she said. "I didn't say you were." She looked away. "Don't be nice. It makes this harder." He tilted his head. "Why would kindness make anything harder?" She didn't answer. But she set down her wine and walked toward him. There were 2 sofas. She chose the one beside his. Not close. Not touching. But not far. He spoke first. "When I was 16, I burned my father's will before anyone could see it." She blinked. "Why?" "Because I knew it would make my brother CEO. And I wanted to prove I deserved more than his pity." "That's cold." He didn't flinch. "It was." She didn't speak for a long time. Then, "I wanted you to pay for something you didn't even know you did." Julian turned to her slowly. "Did I?" "Yes." "Do you still want me to?" "I don't know anymore." The wind howled outside like grief remembered. She shivered. Without a word, he pulled a blanket from behind the couch. Draped it over her shoulders. His fingers brushed her collarbone. She didn't pull away. For a while they just breathed. Then he asked, "Do you miss him? Your father?" She nodded. "Every version of him. Even the one I made up to survive." He looked at her, "Soft now? I think he'd be proud of who you are." She laughed once, bitter. "You don't even know who I am." "I'm starting to." She met his eyes. For once, there was no mask between them. No pretending. No business. No betrayal. Just 2 people who had hurt and hurt others, and were somehow still standing. Still breathing. Still here. At midnight the storm began to die. And she whispered as if to no one, "You stayed." Julian looked at her. "So did you." They didn't kiss. They didn't touch. But when she fell asleep on the couch beside him, her head barely grazing his shoulder, he didn't move. Not for hours. The storm had passed, but the silence stayed. For 3 days, they acted like nothing had shifted. like the night on the couch was a dream they both woke from and refused to speak about. But it hung in the air, in glances, in hesitations, in the way he poured her coffee without asking now. It was subtle, domestic, dangerous, because it felt real. Then came the envelope. It was nothing at first, a white folder slid under Julian's office door by his assistant. A background check follow-up. Standard protocol, he thought. Until he opened it, and found her name, not as a debutante or bride, but as a surveillance subject. Her emails, her meetings, her connection to the lawyer who once sued Crosstech, and notes about her father's collapse. Julian froze. The last page? A screenshot. An old message. He took everything from my family. If he thinks marrying me makes it go away, he'll learn the hard way. She was in the kitchen, barefoot, when he walked in. His face unreadable. He set the folder down. Is it true? He asked. She saw the name on the tab. Her stomach dropped. Julian. Don't. Just answer. She looked at him. Then quietly, yes. The air between them turned sharp. You married me for revenge, he said. Not a question. At first. He laughed once, empty, hollow. I told you things I've never said out loud. I let you in. I didn't plan for. Don't say it wasn't real. I'm not, she said. I'm saying it became real. He stepped back like she'd slapped him. What else are you lying about? Nothing. I don't believe you. She tried to move toward him. He flinched. Julian, I didn't expect to. Feel something? He snapped. Join the club. Her eyes burned. I didn't expect to care. He turned away. Too late. That night, she packed a bag. Not because he told her to, because she couldn't bear the way he looked at her. Not with hatred, but with hurt. And that was worse. She left a note. I never wanted to hurt you. I only knew how to survive. But you saw me before I even did. That wasn't fake. None of that was fake. He found it in the morning. Didn't read it twice. Didn't tear it up. Just stared out the window like she used to, and wondered how long he'd feel this hollow. The apartment was too quiet without her. Julian hadn't realized how much space she filled, not with noise, but with presence. She used to hum when she cooked. Run her fingers along the edges of the window frame. Read until midnight with her legs curled beneath her. Now, the windows felt colder. The books untouched. He hadn't touched the note since she left. But he hadn't thrown it away either. Across the city, she sat on the floor of her childhood bedroom. The house was smaller than she remembered. The air thinner. Or maybe she was just different now. She clutched an old photograph. Her father smiling beside her, her arms wrapped around his neck. You always said I'd be too soft, she whispered. Turns out I was too angry. She replayed everything, every moment with Julian that wasn't part of the plan. The blanket he wrapped around her shoulders. The way his voice cracked when he spoke about panic attacks. The morning he made her coffee like it was a reflex. None of it was scripted. All of it was real. Julian sat in his study, staring at a marriage contract he'd once thought would protect him. He tore it in half. Then in half again. Not out of rage. Out of release. She found the courage to visit the gravesite. Her father's. Knees in the dirt. Hands shaking. I thought I'd make it right by hurting the man who took from us, she whispered. But all I did was take something from myself. The pause. I love him. She blinked. She hadn't meant to say it. But once it was out, it felt true. And terrifying. He stepped into her old neighborhood that night. Found the park she mentioned once in passing. Sat on the same bench she used to read at as a girl. And he waited. Not because he knew she'd come. But because for the first time in his life, he wanted to hope she would. It was raining again. Not like the storm weeks ago. This rain was softer, like the sky had finally let go of something it had been holding too long. She stepped out of the cab, heart pounding. The doorman stared, surprised. Mrs. Cross. She hesitated, then nodded. Not sure if I still am. He smiled. He never stopped calling you that. Julian was in the study. Same chair. Same glass of scotch. Same silence. But something in him had unraveled. His sleeves were rolled. tie gone, hair a little less perfect. When he looked up and saw her, he didn't stand, didn't speak. He just breathed. She stepped forward. I'm not here to justify what I did, she said, because I can't. Still, he said nothing. She continued. But I need you to know. I didn't come back to finish the war. I came back to end it. The pause. Because somewhere between hating you and hurting you, I fell in love with you. His eyes didn't blink, but they changed, softened, shimmered. And that terrified me, she added. He finally spoke. Me too. Silence again. But this time, it didn't hurt. It healed. She reached into her coat, pulled out the torn marriage contract, reassembled with tape. I don't want a deal, she said. I want a beginning. He stared at the fragile document, then at her. I burned mine, he said softly. Didn't expect to regret it. She laughed once. Nervous. Hopeful. Do you? He stood, crossed the space between them. Not fast. Not dramatic. But with purpose. I regret not knowing you sooner. Then after a pause. But I don't regret marrying you. They didn't kiss immediately. They just stood there, breathing the same air again, letting it settle, this new truth. She said, if you want out, I understand. He shook his head. I want in. But for real this time. No armor. No lies. She nodded. That's all I wanted. Even before I knew it. He took her hand, held it like it might disappear. But this time, she held back. The next morning, the city woke to the rumor that the cross marriage was over. But by that afternoon, new photos surfaced, of them walking hand in hand, no press in sight, no smiles for cameras. Just two people in the rain, looking like maybe, just maybe, they'd found peace. Weeks later, she opened a letter. A final settlement from the old lawsuit involving her father. She tossed it in the drawer. Didn't need it anymore. Some things weren't about revenge. Some things were about release. He brought her coffee every morning. She laughed more. They argued, sure, but now they fought to stay, not to win. And in the quiet moments, when the world fell away and it was just them, she whispered, you don't have to stay. And he always answered, but I want to. Have you ever walked into something for one reason, and walked out with something completely different, maybe even love? Tell me in the comments. Someone else might need your story. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.